Welcome back to Fast Market on the Schwab Network. Kevin Hinks and Kevin Green here now for our Cashtag segment. I'd like to bring in the co-founder of Likefolio.com, Mr. Landon Swan, to the show. He's going to give us data on an earnings event coming up tomorrow morning. That is Home Depot. Landon, the real question is going to be, is the consumer, is the discretionary or large ticket discretionary customer hanging in there? Your thoughts, Landon?
Yeah, you're right. That's the key. I mean, when we look at everything that we've got on Home Depot, of course, about half of their business comes from the professionals and about half of the do-it-yourselfers. And what we're seeing, anecdotally and in the data is that there's been a shift in the do-it-yourselfers from very large projects to much smaller projects. And I think a lot of that has to do with, the housing market contraction. It's just slowing down due to interest rates. People are locked into those 3% mortgages, and 7% doesn't look too appealing when you're thinking about moving. And it's a difficult time for consumers, frankly. And so we're seeing a lot of people take in those smaller projects. I think there is some appetite for continued improvement. We're seeing that actually this weekend in the data. People are starting to pick up those outdoor projects. They're going to Home Depot. They're talking about Mother's Day, doing things for their wives, or picking up flowers, that kind of stuff. So there's a little bit of an uptick there this weekend. But seasonally, when you correct for that, it's pretty flat on a year-over-year basis when you look at the web data. If are consumers visiting HomeDepot.com or visiting Lowe's, where they're actually they go pretty much in lockstep with each other. We're not seeing a big divergence between the two of those. And when it comes to happiness, they're actually very close as well. But you can see here on the web visits, I mean, those are just about as close as you get to mirror images of each other. Just Home Depot is obviously larger, but they're moving in lockstep with each other. Mentions, however, are up a little bit on a year-over-year basis, so we like to see that. Again, some of that has to do with this weekend right now, but still, when you correct for seasonality, we're still getting a little bit of an uptick on a year-over-year basis. So people are talking about going to Home Depot more. The happiness levels are very close to each other. These are just 2 points apart, so not a huge difference between these two. But I think you just got to ask yourself, like, where is this company headed? How well is the consumer doing right now? Last quarter, we know that their sales were off by about 3%. They beat on earnings, so they're handling their expense side very well. But they also talked about expectations of increasing sales of about 1% this year, as opposed to what analysts were hoping for, which was 1.6%. We're talking small numbers, but on the volume that they do, they're really large numbers. So everything that we have right now is kind of I guess neutral, maybe leaning bullish on Home Depot. We are seeing that, based on the stock coming off, 13%, something like that, since March highs. Obviously, that's going to make the stock a little bit more attractive to us. But we know the consumer is being pinched, to answer your question, and the project sizes are getting smaller from that end. They did have a large acquisition, I think their largest in history, with SRS Distribution, which is going to connect them even better to the professional market. They've got a lot of synergies there with efficiencies that they're going to come across. They're going to be able to hit on the roofers and the swimming pool manufacturers and suppliers, things like that. So they're going to hit that side better. I think that's going to be big for the business. But when it comes to the consumer side, which is where they compete mostly with Lowe's, the individuals, we're just, people want to do projects, and this is the season to get outside and do them. But the size of the projects is what's going down, which means that the revenue to Home Depot is going down.
So Landon, just looking at the data here, it does appear that there's a pretty decent divergence with the amount of mentions to the upside, with the price for the most part has stayed fairly flat. Is that a sign of seasonality, or is that something that we would see a little bit more of a convergence between the two post earnings? I just want to kind of get your thoughts on that, because it seems like there's a pretty rapid move to the upside as far as the mentions go, and that should be ultimately positive when it comes to the consumer, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So there is definitely a seasonal nature to this. I mean, this is Home Depot and Lowe's are both two of the most seasonal companies that we see, and this is the beginning of the uptick, right? As the weather gets nicer, all of a sudden you start looking outside, you start doing a lot more projects. The lawn comes into play. There's all kinds of stuff that happens. So there is seasonality there, but it's still up on a year-over-year basis, and so I think that's what's really important. You got to weigh that against the web visits, which is pretty much flat So between the two, I'd say we are leaning a little bit more bullish when you add in the fact that we're off highs, like I said, double digits, I think 13% from those March highs. That makes it a little bit more attractive to us. I don't think that we're going to, surprise to the upside here. I think that this is probably going to be a report of things going fairly well, but not amazing. And again, I think a lot of expectations are going to be tempered by just the consumer climate right now. It's just difficult. A lot of people are pinched. Inflation's hurting a lot. Even though, lumber prices are down, the interest rates being up has really stalled the housing market. Once that picks up, then I think we're off to the races with Home Depot and Lowe's. It's just a question of, how long is that going to take before the housing market picks up? And then, every time you buy a new house, you got to fix it up and change this and that. And all of a sudden you're spending, tens or 20s or $50,000 at Home Depot. That's good for the company. But right now it's just too tight for the consumer. But on the professional side, we love what they're doing there. I think just the consumer side is going to be a little bit tough.
Home refurbishing retail is really a duopoly. That's what your data shows, but there's a clear winner here, right, Landon? I mean, Home Depot, in terms of size, in terms of the numbers, they're the clear winner. But Landon, some of their earnings reports in the past have shown, like you mentioned, lower sales volume but higher prices, and that's how they've been beating earnings. Landon, how long can that last?
Right, exactly. That can't last that long. I mean, people, they're excited about doing projects as usual. Again, this is the time of year it just starts to uptick. But there's only so much you can do to your house, and if the prices continue to rise on everything, then home improvement goes down the list of importance. One of the things that we've seen in our data is that experiences have maintained a very high priority for consumers, and so I think that vacations and stuff like that's taking precedent over maybe home improvement, even though again this is the time of the year. So I think you got to have the prices come down a little bit, interest rates come down, and then maybe we'll see we'll see an easing for the consumer. But right now the consumer is very, very tapped. I mean, credit card debt's at all-time highs. I mean, the consumer's making less money than they were years ago. This is a tough time right now. So to appeal to that market is, you're going to see a lot of contraction. You're going to see, like I said, like you said, actually, you're going to see the number of projects maybe they're staying the same, but the size of each one is much smaller. So instead of building something large in the backyard, maybe they'll just redo the lawn or something like that. So it's a tough environment right now. Home Depot's hanging in there. I like them at the price that they're at with this sell-off that we've gotten over the last couple of months, and the data is fine. It's not great. It's just fine.
Fix up the bathroom or take a cruise, Landon. I don't know. Right. It seems pretty easy to me. Landon Swan, thanks for coming on as always, spending a little time with us and bringing us the incredible Likefolio data. Have a great day, Landon.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Take care.
All right, Kev, you brought us a